Good morning, Raptor Freaks. Lexi Odds Thursday Think Tank today, and it is the April the 20th, and that is 420. That is the unofficial cannabis holiday, uh, day of marching, day of protesting, day of activism for cannabis-related subjects. And the world in the last 5, 6 years has really changed and turned on a dime on how it stands with cannabis. And the NBA is something that very much signifies how society has changed and relaxed its stance on cannabis and what's going on with it. In fact, the NBA was getting behind the times with things, and they had to catch up and show that they're a progressive league in sports by amending their rules with cannabis. And in this new CBA deal that just was signed by the players in the NBA, there's a whole bunch of stuff that just got opened up, wide open, as far as no longer technically you cannot get tested for cannabis anymore. You could technically still get tested for it in recent years, but since the pandemic happened, Adam Silver purposely decided not to test the players because he figured they're going to be sitting around anyway. And they can't play, they can't do anything. It would be an invasion of privacy, he said, and also unnecessary. And he understood that it would just cause like all kinds of like headaches as far as things. So there may have been rules on the books in the recent years about cannabis and players, but they didn't enforce them. Basically, it's like they decided, they can kind of feel the changing of the tides in society with the stances on how people view cannabis. So they decided to get rid of all rules about it as far as not permitting players to use it. This is really smart in a lot of ways. I know some people had the reaction yesterday that this is bad for the children. This is bad for all kinds of different reasons, but in some ways, it's actually really good for a lot of good reasons. One of them being that one of the things that happened in the history of the NBA is that players would get penalized for smoking marijuana, and they'd miss games, they'd lose money, they'd be fined. It could really screw up somebody's NBA career. And there were players throughout the history of the NBA at different times that were trailblazers in fighting this fight to get cannabis not to be stigmatized or to be a legal substance. And one of the main ones was Al Harrington. Al Harrington used to play for the Indiana Pacers. And then he was very good friends with a former Raptor, Antonio Davis. When he came to the Pacers, he was his rook, and he stayed at his house. And Davis had such glowing things to say about Al Harrington as a player. Well, since Al's retired, he has become a forefront person in the industry of cannabis, and he runs a company. And he has been very much advocating and politicking to help lessen the penalties or the harshness on cannabis around the NBA. And he started this in the early 2000s. So he was really one of the earliest guys that was kind of really pushing things. Another guy who was really big in this fight that was in the NBA was Clifford Robinson. Clifford Robinson, who was originally with the Portland Trailblazers in the late 80s, played for them for about 8-10 years. And then he went all over the place like Phoenix, Detroit, a couple other teams. Well, he got in big trouble for smoking weed at one point in his career. And it really messed up a certain point in his career. And he just didn't feel like it was fair. So he became a big person fighting for the fight to legalize cannabis around the NBA. So this has been a struggle that's gone on for a long time. And in some ways, this change in the CBA deal is being celebrated by the players because it was very much a real fight, a labor fight with the owners and the NBA about the use of cannabis. In some ways, it's very, very important that this has happened because we've got to look at the context of cannabis in society as a whole and kind of it's been used as a tool for law enforcement. There's certain rules that apply to certain people and they don't apply to other people, and they get kind of enforced in different ways. Growing up as a guy down in Florida, I was caught with marijuana by police officers in the past, but I didn't go to jail. They just took it from me and told me you shouldn't smoke this stuff, young man. And but I didn't go to jail. Meanwhile, my friend Anton, different skin color of mine, he'd get caught with some marijuana. He would go to jail. So in a lot of ways, the persecution of marijuana or cannabis smokers in the history of law enforcement has been very racially biased, and it has been used to hold people of color down, and not even just black people. People of Latin American heritage, all kinds of different people, and it's just very selective by the cops. The cops would really be like, yeah, well, all right, we'll get them for this. So in some ways, it's kind of an insidious thing that cannabis in the first place was illegal, and the way it was used was to incarcerate people at a higher number. That's very totally unfair. So think about that in the context of the NBA and its makeup, and why you would think that a league that has a lot of African Americans in it, why they would want to have cannabis be legal, because of all the messed up stuff that's happened in society with it in relation to that, to race issues. So the NBA being such a social justice warrior kind of league, they want to be on the cutting edge of progressiveness and being ahead of things. And in some ways, the NBA was getting left behind on the topic of cannabis, that they needed to catch up. And well, they have now, because they made this new CBA. And this is really, really good for a lot of reasons. Now, I know we're worried about the kids. Now, we don't want NBA players to be in commercials on TV promoting cannabis products. In fact, I feel like cannabis should be treated similarly to alcohol and cigarettes. And you don't see those kind of advertisements on television. In fact, you can get effective advertising out for these kind of products and still sell them in society. We see beer get sold all the time and cigarettes get sold all the time, and they don't get the same advertising streams as far as where they can put the advertising, which is good. I like that kind of control over that kind of exposure. Now, some people will say, okay, they have stereotypical ideas about cannabis and cannabis use. They just think of the big fat Cheech and Chong joint and, woo, woo, smoke out, baby. Yeah, but it's not really what this industry is anymore. This industry has become more the CBD industry, which is the cannabinoid. It's actually the part of the plant that that does all the stuff. Well, you don't need to smoke it anymore. In fact, that a lot of people ingest it by eating an edible or something like that, or even just a pill. And in some ways, that really cuts out the health concerns of the smoke damage to your lungs and your respiratory system. So in some ways, they've cut out a big, huge part of the health risks in cannabis. And that players, this is the other thing that's really great about cannabis in the NBA. That, the NBA is such an interesting thing about, like, play a game, have a recovery day, play a game, have a recovery day. And the players, the pros, especially the older ones, they have to get really good at being in tune with their body and understanding, like, how to recover, how to rest and recover after every single battle on the NBA court every night. And, some of the players actually use painkillers and opioids to alleviate pain. And that is not good. Trust me, that is not good. If you have to choose between taking opioids or taking a CBD that is you ingest and just take orally and you don't have to smoke, it's a much safer, better alternative. In fact, CBDs can be very helpful to the body in recovery. And that's why, in some ways, it is a very, very good thing for NBA players, because CBD can be used as part of the recovery schedule and the recovery plan in a very effective way. In fact, players have been doing this already, and they find really, really good results. I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense that, something like that would be very aiding in recovering your body after being so sore and beat up and hitting the floor and taking all kinds of elbows and all kinds of stuff. The CBD can be very, very pain relieving on the off day. So just a little synopsis of where the NBA is with cannabis at this point. Realize that there are pioneers and people in the NBA that fought very hard in this fight for decades. to get marijuana slash cannabis legalized as use by players. Some people say they estimate about 80% of the players use CBD or cannabis. And of course, Kevin Durant may be the most outspoken of them and the most well-known one. In fact, he did an interview where he said, "Yeah, I very much do believe in CBD, and I'm on it right now." So it's like, it's more normalized. Now, some players still do not go near it. I know Scotty has nothing to do with this stuff. I just know because of last summer talking to people on his stream that know him really well, like his brother, that he doesn't do any kind of like thing that will hurt his body, whether it's cigarettes, alcohol, or any kind of cannabis. So it's something that, like, it'll be on a case by case basis, and it's up to the individual athlete if they want to get into that realm of things. I think in some ways it's very smart because it can really help with your body and like alleviating pain and allowing it to recover in recovery days. So it's not for everyone, and it's not gonna be for everyone, but this is good because in some ways also they've opened the freedom for the players to have a new revenue stream through the CBD companies. Now, they don't necessarily have to be in the forefront in the advertising or spokesperson for their companies, but they can definitely invest money and make money off of it. In some ways, that's something that the NBA players want more and more is financial freedom to invest in things that they want to invest in. And the betting, yeah, maybe not as much attractive, but the CBD could be very attractive to people. In fact, we know that Fred and his brother Darnell had already started the legwork on starting to make a company, a cannabis company in Illinois. And now it seems that, now he doesn't have to really work through his brother Darnell. He can actually step up and be visibly part of that company at this point. So I think Fred was getting a little bit ahead already, and he kind of knew the trend that was coming, and he's on top of things. He wants to be one of the first to go off the start of things and stuff. So a lot of NBA players that used to play have retired and gotten into that industry. And they're very much involved in it. There's a lot of them. You'd be surprised. Sean Kemp's got a store in Seattle where he sells cannabis out of it. Of course, I said Al Harrington. There's quite a few, and there's some that you may be surprised, like very mainstream guys that you would have been like, "Whoa, I didn't realize they had a cannabis store." Yeah, you'd be shocked at some of the names of people that are involved in this industry already because they're former players and they can do it after the fact. So yeah, it's a very interesting subject. That's more of the learning history lesson kind of section of the stream. Now we're more like kind of like, I was thinking what kind of things would cannabis be related with our Raptor team? Like, who we know Fred is already involved in this, but who do you think else would be involved in uh, uh, trying to get a cannabis company or having some sort of products? I'll bet you Thad Young, being such a businessman and entrepreneur, maybe somebody who gets involved in something with cannabis at some point, but maybe not. Maybe he has certain ideas about it. And as a father, he wants to be a good role model, and maybe he wouldn't. Who is it? Who is going to be on this team? Who's on this team that would be investing in something like this? And would they have a specialty strain named after themselves just for fun with the with their product? I'm a big wrestling fan, and one of the wrestlers that's very much involved in this kind of stuff is Rob Van Dam. And Rob Van Dam had a company where he made Rob Van Dam CBDs, RVD CBDs, and he was with certain partners. Well, they weren't very good partners, and they kind of screwed him over in business. So that CBD company that RVD has is kind of ended at this point. But that's what I'm saying. There's money making opportunities out there for the players. So maybe there'll be some new strains and something weird like OG Kush. I don't know. It'll be pretty interesting to see how this develops and stuff. But this is all very good. This means more freedom. This means more, allowances for players to have business opportunities. And in some ways, the NBA has always been kind of fascist. They've always been controlling of their players and what they can say and they can do. and what they can do with their money and all this kind of stuff. And that's always been anti-American or democratic or not totally right. In some ways, the NBA had to go through more rules than maybe some of the other sports leagues, just partly because of its makeup. So, this is really, really good situation. And it's freedom is better in some ways. Freedom is better. All right, let me see what you guys are saying in the comments real quick. Monique is here first. Good morning, everyone. Correct me if I'm wrong, but hasn't J.R. Smith been smoking in the NBA when he was with the Cavs many years ago? Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of players that have smoked throughout the whole time. And they just, what they do is crazy. They'll smoke in the off season, and then they would test and they kind of avoid it. In some ways, at times in the NBA's history, it was really just a slap on the wrist. They'd be like, okay, we tested you and you're positive for cannabis. And they're like, we just don't test again for it the next time we come around and you'll be fine. Because the rule was actually they had to test 3 times positive to get a marijuana, to get in trouble for smoking marijuana. So they could test twice. And then, but if they missed it on the 3rd time, they were fine. So the rules have very much evolved over time to become more relaxed to this point. They got more and more relaxed. The rules were there for the last 3 or 4 years, but they weren't really enforced. Adam Silver had a tough choice to make. It's like all these players are going to have to be staying at home because of the pandemic. Are we going to try and test them and see what they're doing on their private time at home? No, we're going to let it go. And it kind of, when everybody came back, he didn't continue the testing really. And then, they didn't really test or do anything with cannabis after that. So it really is a thing that evolved. But there's definitely been players that have been smoking cannabis for a long time, a lot longer than now, and probably since the very beginning of the NBA. Monique's also saying, fun fact, mom came up from London, England when she was 5, but doesn't have the accent that OG has in the video from yesterday. There's a new video out by the London Lions about their new part owner, OG Anunoby. It's a video of him coming back to the UK and talking about his history in London and how he, being a British kid. And it's really weird because and this is a phenomena that happens to me, so I know exactly what's going on here. OG has a British accent in the clip, which is very strange because we haven't really heard OG do his British accent before. And he's always like over here, he speaks like he sounds like he's from Indiana, honestly, just like his university where he went to. He has a North American accent, then he has a UK accent. And if y'all have not heard OG's UK accent, it's very interesting. You should check out this clip that Monique is talking about. We were watching it yesterday, and Monique right away is like, yeah, I can totally hear the accent, Lex, you're talking about. And I'm like, is he being fake or what? And I'm like, no, Lex, listen, sometimes you come back to where you're from or somewhere where you've lived in the past, and you pick up on the old accent again. Like if I go down to Tallahassee, I may get a little bit more country or a little bit more Southern with my accent if I'm down at the convenience store or something like that. Or if I go out to Manitoba and visit some of my family out there, I may, talk a little bit more like, hey, and like, oh, yeah, hey, and stuff like that. Sometimes you just pick up on what's around you, and the surroundings and the people, and your accent can actually change just because of your locale. So this is part of what's going on with OG is he's back in the UK and he's in his UK accent. It's really weird to hear him with a British accent. So if anybody wants a little delight as a Raptor freak this morning, I'll find this clip and I'll post it in the comments so y'all can watch it. Hear OG in his UK accent. But yeah, it's really cool clip. It's so weird that because I thought this is off season, everybody jokes we're not going to see OG now for 3 months. Well, he's the one we're seeing the most out of all the Raptors since the off season started. In fact, we're consistently been seeing OG this week. Maybe OG has decided that, he wants to get more recognition with like Defensive Player of the Year awards, but he realizes that he's kind of been in the background because he hasn't really put himself out there. So maybe OG is deciding in his people that a good strategy would be put yourself out there and put yourself on blast a little bit because he really hasn't had much public identity in a lot of ways. And well, maybe this will help bring his profile up in the NBA to be considered more for awards and stuff. Fantastic stuff. Part owner of the London Lions. You go, OG Anunoby. So cool. All right, let's see. Fun Guy saying happy 420, baby. Happy 420. We know Fun Guy is somebody celebrating today, just like me. I started early today, laugh out loud, having another one on my way to Toronto right now already. Well, be careful out there and be responsible with your usage of cannabis, please. I advocate the use of cannabis, but I advocate it in a responsible way. And, they say don't toke and drive or something like that. I'm sure you're on transit, right, Fun Guy? MSJ saying, thinking the lift on MJ testing is the right call, but the idea of players promoting gambling and MJ is going to have the players looking for the money off the court. The game will be secondary. I don't know. I mean, MSJ, let's think about it this way. They've always had the ability to go get endorsement deals. I don't think it's very much different than shoes or apparel companies or, even food companies or something like that. They've been able to give their likeness and themselves to other companies and be a part of their advertising. Think of Norman Powell and Osmos. This is just another company and it's not any different. It's not like you're really making the changes as much. Now, you're hinting at something here that is interesting because I'm noticing something in this playoff with the games that have been going on in the playoffs so far, that we're in a weird place in the NBA. We're at a weird place of like, there's a difference between the old and the new, kind of at battle right now. And you can see it in the players, in the way that the games are being played right now in the playoffs. There's that old school, like knock it out, like physicalness that's happening in these games. And some of the players are too soft and they can't take it. There's literally the old generation beating up on the new generation. And some of these guys are just like not cut out in some ways. And this is the weird thing about the playoffs now. It may be that to be a really good playoff team, you have to have that old school grit and toughness to take the physicality. And then sure, you could be a young guy who comes in and can score, looks real flashy and stuff like that. But if you can't take the hard knocks of the second season, then what the fuck? We don't want you around. So I hope that Messiah and Bobby are really thinking about this when they make moves and build our team going in the future. Is that there's in some ways there's a softness with the younger players that you don't necessarily want to have on your team in certain ways. These guys are not the same kind of competitors. They don't get up for games in the same way. And in some ways, the makeup of your team, if you have too many of these kind of guys like Rudy Gobert, you may not win, even if you have a very talented team, because the other team is more old school. I'm going to punch you in the face and come take it from you kind of thing. The way Sabonis is playing right now is getting complained about by the soft ass Warriors. Listen, the way he's playing is playing like a bull in a china shop. He did that all season. That's the style of Domantas Sabonis's game. But the Warriors are crying foul that he is bullying and being too physical. Warriors, you're such pussies. You just start talking about and complaining about physicality in the playoffs. You idiots. You sound so hypocritical. This is what this season is all about. The physicality. Either you take it, meet it, and beat it, or you lose and you go home. And that's just how it is. But I think that there is really like a battle right now in the NBA between softness and not being like a full pro. You're a pro. You got that identity. You got that status. You carry it. But in some ways on the court, you're not necessarily as professional as professionals can be. And that's something that's different about the NBA. And you're kind of hinting at this, MSJ. I see it in your comment. And I'm wondering about how this will be. This may very much help you suss out who's going to be the champ, which team's like the toughest, because there's a lot of soft teams in the NBA right now. There really are. There's a lot of soft teams. But yeah, I like what you're saying too. It's going to be good for the players having more freedom and stuff. But I don't know how many of them are going to actually promote the gambling. And we don't know what they open up the rules in this way in the CBA, but they're not totally the ones who decide all this. In fact, the government of Ontario will have a say on whether athletes can endorse cannabis products or not. So it's not totally just up to the NBA. And what just happened in that is there's other levels where it has to be okayed for it to happen. So don't expect to see Fred on TV pushing cannabis right away. That may not happen because the government of Ontario may not allow it, or the Canada government, or somebody, who knows. Kareem is here. Good to see Kareem Thomas. Happy 420. Yes, Kareem. I poke bears. I like it. He's got a new nickname in reference to, I guess that's Dylan Brooks's comment last night after beating the Lakers. He says, I'm not scared of him. He's 40 years old and I poke bears, or something like that. Dylan Brooks and the Grizzlies getting it done last night, shorthanded. This is actually a huge accomplishment, y'all. Seriously. They don't have their starting center and their franchise high flying player last night, and they still managed to beat the Lakers. Kudos to you, Memphis Grizzlies, tying up that series in Memphis last night with missing two of your very most important players. Honestly, that Steven Adams is so crucial to you even being better, and you're doing it without your center. And now John Morant didn't even play, and these guys like Desmond Bain, Dylan Brooks, Xavier Tillman stepping up and playing big in their absence. It really is like a great team overall effort by the Grizzlies compared to the Lakers. The Lakers showed up last night. It was the LeBron carries everybody show again. Anthony Davis gets nailed in the face, and like he's like, oh, and like this is kind of what I'm talking about. The softness that don't get you that far in playoffs. Sure, you can look good, you can be good, and we think you could be one of the best players in the league because of your stature, Anthony. But if you ain't showing up and doing it on the court, then you don't really do it. It's very much you got to do it, or you can't just show up and be like, oh, it's going to happen. Well, you got hit in the face, and it kind of took him out of things for a second. And none of the Lakers really recovered. It's like Austin Reeves was so celebrated and like crazy from the other night. Well, did he show up last night? Not really. Not in the way that they needed him to. And the games kind of went exactly how I thought last night. We knew that Milwaukee had a good chance to win, even though Giannis didn't play. That's the crazy thing. Giannis, a late scratch. Well, the Milwaukee Bucks don't care because in some ways they played a bunch of this season without Giannis, and they have a different mode that goes into with the Giannis-less mode, and it's really more three-point shooting. It's a little bit more centered around the center and Chris Middleton, Brook Lopez, and that's what they did. They hit him with crazy threes. Like they broke a record for threes in a playoff game for them. They had like 25 or something threes last night. They were all hitting them like crazy. And they blew out Miami. Like they destroyed Miami by like 30 points last night. Good job. Milwaukee evening up the series without Giannis Antetokounmpo. That's not good for the Miami Heat. Trust me, that is not good losing that kind of way. And then the third game last night was the Minnesota-Denver game, the late game. And that one wasn't even close either, really. For the most part of the whole game, the Nuggets were dominating. Jamal Murray, go Canada, was absolutely killing it last night. In fact, he broke some records for scoring for the Nuggets. And then Jokic, he had a great game last night. His 50th playoff game all time. He played very well also, taking care of Minnesota to be up 2-0 on them. I still think that's going to be a sweep. But Anthony Edwards showed up and played a lot better for Minnesota in that game. So interesting battles last night. Kind of the way I thought it would go. The home team's taken all three games last night. Now, the games tonight are interesting. We can do the ref report real quick for you guys for the three games tonight, just so I can tell you if you want to put any bets down on the games, I can tell you who the refs are showing are favored to win tonight, just from their histories of how they ref these teams. In Philadelphia and Brooklyn, we got a game in Brooklyn tonight, game 3, Philadelphia and Brooklyn. Tony Brothers will be the crew chief tonight with Ben Taylor and Nick Booker. Now, Tony Brothers and Ben Taylor both are favoring the Sixers tonight as the away team. Meanwhile, Nick Booker does favor the Nets. So in some ways, it looks like they're favoring the Sixers in Brooklyn. But this is the thing. Brooklyn has played them pretty tough. In the last game, they played them pretty tough, and they had a chance to beat them. Well, they're going to need to protect home court. So let's see if Brooklyn can stand up to them and have some good results against Philly tonight. Yeah. The next game, Sacramento at Golden State, game number 3. This is going to be very interesting because of the Draymond suspension. A lot of people are very upset about him getting suspended after he got ejected for the act already. But y'all need to realize and listen to Joe Dumars. This doesn't totally have to do with just that one game where he stomped on Domantas Sabonis. This is about his body of work. Joe Dumars made it very clear. I mean, this guy made so many technicals this past season. He got suspended for it. He's caused problems. Like I said, Adam Silver was sitting courtside watching him, and he saw with his own two eyes what he did when he stopped him. And then he also saw him going at it with the crowd afterwards. That's what I was trying to tell y'all. He's going to get in trouble, and he did. He got suspended for the game tonight. This is a huge blow for the Golden State Warriors. Even though they're playing in Golden State tonight, they're not going to have probably their most important defensive player. And that's tough because in some ways the Kings have absolutely been outplaying the Golden State Warriors. Kudos to Coach of the Year, Mike Brown, for doing such a good job. I mean, it makes sense. Mike Brown was on the Golden State Warriors staff for a while, so he knows them really well, and he knows how to pick them apart with his guys. And in some ways, Steve Kerr and the Warriors have gotten lazy over the years. They've won so many championships. They're kind of very they don't do the work to get ready or prepare or look at things. They really coast on we've been doing it here before. We know what we're doing. We've been doing this so long. And in some ways, that is one of their biggest Achilles heels, is that they're too cocky as far as they think they don't have to do some of the legwork ahead of the time to get ready for a series. And then they find out, yeah, no, that's not like that. Boom, punch in the face. You're down 0-2 now. And I commend Sacramento. You go Sacramento Kings. Taking your chance to be back in the playoffs very seriously and taking it right to them. Now, the refs for tonight in the third game for Sacramento and Golden State are Eric Lewis, Kevin Scott, and Sean Corbin. All three of those refs are going to favor Golden State tonight. So in some ways, I could really see, even though Draymond's going to be out, the NBA kind of maybe favoring the Warriors with the ref crew to kind of balance things out. So I'm fully expecting the Warriors to win this one tonight, even though they're missing somebody, because they'll be back at home. The NBA kind of maybe they're kind of viewing the NBA as being too heavy-handed towards Draymond right now. So in some ways, they're going to be well, we'll even it out and let them win tonight against Sacramento, and it won't be a huge deal. And everybody will shut up and be quiet about being too unfair towards Draymond. It really is Golden State Warriors nation, fan nation is just so loud and vocal and annoying and going on and on about this. It's really kind of annoying, honestly. The Warriors nation is really annoying at this time of year, trust me. So, and then the third game tonight is the Phoenix Clippers game. No Scott Foster in this game, guys. The third game, the first one in LA. And the refs are David Guthrie, Bill Kennedy, and Jason Goebel. Now, David Guthrie and Jason Goebel are favoring the Clippers. They actually favor the Clippers tonight, while Bill Kennedy favors the Suns. So we'll have to see. That's a toss-up, honestly, in my book. That game may very well be on Durant or Leonard as far as who is going to step up and really have a mega game to put their team over the top. So some good games tonight. The refs are favoring Philly, Golden State, and the Clippers. Just so you know, if you're going to go make any of your bets tonight, that's who the refs favor overall. All right, let's keep going in the comments. Mugarbe's here. Good to see Mugarbe Lennon. Good morning, Raptor Freaks. Good morning to you, sir. I hope you're having a pleasant and wonderful 420, baby. Yeah, smoke them if you got them. MK saying Camp Hemp. I think that is what his shop is called. Camp Hemp. Go to Camp Hemp at 42 in Maine, and you can get your Camp Hemp. Yeah. That might be what it's called, MK. No lie. Randolph's here. Morning blessings to our most beloved Raptor Freaks and informative gang. Hope everybody is doing well. Lex, did Adriana enjoy my homeland of St. Vincent and the Grenadines? I'm curious to hear. Wow. Thank you for asking, Randolph. Well, Adriana got back, I guess, 2 nights ago. She was gone for 2 weeks. I think she did very much enjoy it. I know she told me she went to a waterfall. She spent a lot of time on the beach. She was very much trying to stay out of the sun and keep sunscreen on so she wouldn't get burned. But I think that she spent pretty much the whole 2 weeks with her friend Wendy and her family and just went to the beach a lot and relaxed and rested. I know she had a very, very good time, but she was there for 2 weeks. So it was a very long time. So she was very, very ready to get back to normal life here back in Toronto. But I know she had a fantastic time in your home country of St. Vincent Grenadines, Randolph Phillips. So yeah, I know a few people from St. Vincent. My friend Ron, who worked at Scotiabank Arena with me back in the day, is one of my favorite people from St. Vincent. He's just such a cool guy, Ron Coburn. But yeah, she had a great time for what I know. I haven't seen her since she got back. I've just talked on her, to her on the phone just a little bit, but I haven't seen her yet. Well, I'll probably find out more when I see her in person. Kareem is saying Gary Trent Jr. definitely used to sell CBD oils in the back of his trunk during college. You know what? That's speculation, and we're not sure, but it's so ridiculous and fun, and it kind of seems like it could be true. Kareem, you're getting a dunk. That's fine. That may be misinformation, but it seems like it painted such a mental picture to me that yeah, okay, I could see that. I don't know. He may be in the gym. I don't think he did anything else but go to the gym. It's like Gary Trent Sr. say, "Go to the gym." All right, I'll go to the gym. All right, let's keep going. Let's see. MSJ saying the legal issues are one thing, but it's still a drug and shouldn't be advertised by individual players. Imagine the Wheeze Camp White Widow. Ooh, I like that, MSJ. Wheeze Camp White Widow. Chris Boucher Couch Lock. Not a good idea for the kids. Well, it's just like cigarettes and alcohol. You don't market them towards kids. You know, there was a big controversy with Joe Camel from back in the day because he's a cartoon character and he's appealing to kids. Well, you come down and you say you can't have any marketing in places for kids. First of all, you're not going to put it on YTV. And then also, you're not going to put it in like magazines for kids. You know, you very much put your selective marketing to your target audience and you avoid marketing to children. And that means not making flavors and like, the whole thing that happened with the vape is that they made them into like different bubblegum flavors and stuff like that and made it appealing to kids. And it really caused a vape epidemic because they had these flavors and the kids wanted the different flavors. And all these kids got into vaping at a young age, which was very, very bad. So in some ways, you got to really walk a line of like advertising that does not appeal to children or is intended to go towards children. So the marijuana dispensaries and cannabis companies in Toronto right now already have to walk this line. So they're very cognizant of this kind of stuff already. But I agree, this very much needs to have that age like restriction as far as like you got to be 18 and older or something like that. Because it is important. This is an important part. But I like the idea is Weiss Camp White Widow. He'll kill you with the threes. Yeah. G saying, haven't been on in a few days. Finally, fully dealt with my stuff being hacked. It was nice to see Ron Harper Jr. in Downton at the hockey game. Players are still in town, it seems. Yeah, I think that there's quite a few of them. I mean, it's nice out. It makes sense. We've seen Scotty in town. We've seen those guys and Precious and OG. I haven't seen anybody else as far as being around town as far as Raptors. But yeah, it's good to see them there. And I'm glad you're getting things cleared up, G, with your hack that happened recently. But always good to see G. M. Jones is saying, good morning, Alex. Morning freaks. Good morning to you, M. Jones. And I hope you're having a lovely 420, baby. Smoke them if you got them. Yeah. G saying, hi, I've been off for a few days. Finally felt fully dealt with my crazy hacking situation. It was nice to see Doughton. And okay, you wrote it twice with both your accounts. Now, are you the real G or is that the other G? Who's got hacked? Like, there's two G's here. I know the G with the wrench is the real one. That's the one that I know for a long, long time. Now, is that the fake one or is the real one? Who's who? Who's who, Spider-Man? I want to know who's who. Is G's pointing at G right now? Oh, my gosh. MSJ saying, Lex, by far the early days, or NHL was the most controlling of the players. 60s and 70s NBA was a free-for-all thug league. Jordan and Stern cleaned the NBA up, and Silver sees dollars in this. That's all. I don't know. I don't know enough about the NHL at times, but you're right. In some ways, the NBA was crazy. It was a free-for-all in the 70s. It had a cocaine problem. And there were different things. And in some ways, yeah, they had to clean things up. But I'm more like talking about All right, the NFL could be like this too. It's about like dress codes, and it's about like really harshing on them about their free speech and what they're allowed to say in person or not. Like you could be a player and you could say something politically at a certain point, and the NBA would come down on you for speaking out like with your freedom of speech. That's what I'm saying. Like the NFL, I don't know enough about the NHL or the MLB as far as in this respect. But I do know a bit about the NFL and the NBA, just as far as like finding players and being really like take. It's more about liberties. It's about like, could you just go out and say whatever you want to the press? Or would you get in trouble? Would there be repercussions at your job by the governing force of the league you play in? It's that kind of stuff. It's like dress codes were a big deal back in the day. They used to tell all the players, if you're traveling around, you have to wear a suit. You have to wear these kind of clothes. And to me, I never liked that kind of control. And then, once again, like they told them, well, you can't invest in this, you can't invest in that, you can't do this, you can't do that if you're going to play in the NBA. And all those rules, in some ways, some of them are good because they make sense, but some of them were very kind of like limiting and unfair. And that's kind of more of what I'm hinting at. I get what you're saying. In some ways, there was a real problem with the image of the NBA at that time because there were issues. There wasn't as much money in it, so people weren't really caring about certain things with the NBA in the late '70s, and that it did get a little bit out of control in some ways. But then things started to open up, and David Stern's vision of the '80s NBA, cut out a lot of that crap. And in some ways, he became a little bit more controlling of the players in the league and enforcing things. And that's kind of, it's good to an extent. They had to clean things up for sure. But also, in some ways, it was a little bit overstepping as far as like, okay, yeah, you're telling the players how to live their lives. And that's not totally right as far as like if it's a free society. I don't care if these guys make a ton of money. In some ways, they have to make sacrifices on their freedom being NBA players, and they still do to this day. It's just part of the package. Let's keep going. Shane saying, when you mention NBA and cannabis together, I instantly think of the Aaron Gordon interview before the dunk contest a few years back. He was high as a kite. Another person that's really important to point out in this whole situation is Michael Phelps. Michael Phelps was the best, greatest swimmer and history of swimming in a lot of ways. And this guy is very, very openly a cannabis user and was during those times, and very much like disproved a lot of bullshit that people thought about people that use cannabis because of his performance and just how good he was. It's kind of like, okay, you're saying this and this about cannabis, but then you see Michael Phelps going out there and getting all these medals and this kind of stuff. It's interesting. There's a whole history, like I said, of I could have really gotten to the weeds and looked at all the suspensions for marijuana in the history of the NBA and see how frequent they were in different years, and when they started like lessening, like coming down on people, and when they when the peak of like really coming down on people was for a while. So it's interesting. Cowboys saying, good morning, Lex and Raptors freaks. Happy 420. Hope everyone has a great day. If you're not, have a toke. Gotta go later. Raptor Freak family, winning stream already. All right, dap to Bradley. Thank you, Bradley. Ta-da. Go call Ta-da. They can come to your house and help you with household chores that you need done around the house, like washing your windows. It's bright outside now. Maybe your windows aren't as clean as you thought they were. They'll come down there and scrub them up for you so you can see clearly now, because Ta-da has come. That's right. They're in the phone book in the 416. Ta-da. They can help you out at your house. G saying, Sam Decker proudly stating OG is an owner in his league, but he won't call him boss. That's right. This team that OG has bought part stake in has some players on it that we know. Sam Decker is currently a player on the London Lions, and also Aaron Best. Aaron Best, who played in the CBL last year and also was on the 905 in recent years. Those are like their two main players. They're international players. They have a lot of UK players on the team, but then they have a couple of spots where they can have premium players that were former NBA guys like Sam Decker and Aaron Best. So Sam Decker has a neat little video saying that, yeah, he was my teammate, but now he's kind of my boss. Well, that's kind of cool, eh? So Sam Decker is still involved with OG guys. He plays on the team that he part owns. So there you go. That's pretty interesting stuff. And Aaron Best, Canadian, plays on that team also. So pretty cool. MSJ saying true on endorsements, yet gambling. If players can hook up with gambling sites, the money will take over, but maybe it will also make them cutthroat and kill each other on the court. Look forward to that. I don't know. I just think that it's just a minefield of folly. There's all kinds of different scenarios that could be really ugly and bad. Like there can be a scandal with the more that gambling's kind of around the game and stuff like that. And I know that they're saying, oh, it's more transparent and visible than it was before. In some ways, that's healthier than like the underlying illegal gambling if you make it legal. But still, I don't agree with that. It's a culture. It's very much like gun culture, and it's not good. It's not a good culture. It's not a good culture to be in sports, and that's the thing that wise people have known for a long, long time. But dumb people that want to make money are going to realize in time that it could very much destroy sports in certain ways, specific sports. I really do predict that there's going to be a huge gambling scandal because of the marriage of legalized gambling with sports in our world today. That this has never been a good idea, and there's going to be a huge, huge problem down the road. And we want the NBA to be the league that has the problem? Not necessarily. Some other league may be first, but it may be us that has the problem first. I don't know. I don't think that, like, once again, the players know internally they hate the gambling side of this. I mean, the idiot fan in Orlando is suing Bradley Beal and taking him to court for knocking his hat off his head and the whole gambling. Like, you made me lose $1,000. Siakam said he absolutely hates the gambling aspect in the NBA at this point. So, and I'm waiting to see, are any of the players going to be scabs and cross the line to take the money for endorsing the gambling sites? A lot of them may not, because they may be ostracized or maybe looked down on for selling out the rest of them and taking money from the gambling sites. So I don't know. We're gonna have to see who the first one is, if there is gonna be one, and see if they get ostracized or kind of get shit for taking money, endorsing the gambling sites, which are so toxic and bad for the league. So that's what I'm thinking is like, look, the peers may be like, be in the locker room and like, be like, really, you had to go and do that? You took that money and you're in that commercial now? Really, really? They may have to hear it from their teammates. And that's the thing that may keep people from doing it. Is like, I just don't want to fucking hear it from my teammates because I did it. Because in some ways they'll be looked at as sellouts. They really, really will be looked at as sellouts. Let's see. Cool Cat saying, good morning, Raptor Free Crew. Happy 420 for those who celebrate. That's right. You don't have to. You don't want to. I'm an alcoholic. I can't drink alcohol. So my thing is cannabis. And, I'm glad that it is around just because, I can't drink any alcohol, but I can still relax with some cannabis. And I appreciate that. Chris comes here. Good to see the great Chris comes. Been a little bit. Good to see him. Yo, rough year for the Raps. Going to be interesting to see what changes Masai makes. Keep holding it down. Playoffs have been good so far. Enjoy. Thank you, Chriscom, for checking in with us real quick. Yeah, it was a little bit of a difficult kind of season, but it is what it is, and it's gone now. We can learn from it. We can look at it. We can analyze it. We can learn from it, hopefully coaches and front office, and we can make adjustments for next year to be more successful. That is what we're looking at right now. We're in the assessment phase, assessing the season, looking at what happened with our season and why. And maybe we're looking at the areas where we can improve or get better results. And maybe we're making changes, big changes. We'll have to see how that goes. And still speculating and waiting for Masai to step up to that podium and take the microphone and tell us about this season. We are a loose end, untied up, that we need to tie up with Masai Ujiri's press conference. And when we hear it, he probably already have made some news and he'll be just telling us about it. And he doesn't want to come out and talk to us yet until he's announced what he's going to do. And I'm pretty sure we know what it is. Isaac's here. Good to see Isaac Campbell, the benevolent Isaac Campbell, holding it down in the nation's capital in Ottawa. Mr. Campbell, what do you have to say today? Draymond ain't green. He is a repeat dispenser of pot shots. Golden State Warriors must be feeling pretty low. It's a weird, like, this is such a crazy rivalry. Like, Sacramento has not been a good team for a long time. But with them, when they're up and they're playing well, they are a great rival for Golden State. They are very close in proximity as far as in the state of California in a lot of ways. So there's a lot of fans that can go to both games and travel between the two. We've seen the interaction with E40. We've seen the cowbells, and now they're banned. That's the thing. That dude does a cowbell behind the GM of the Golden State Warriors the whole entire game. Well, guess what? They're banned from the arena for the next game. That's the kind of way it works. If DeAr DeRozan was coming the next game, she might be banned from screeching because they made the adjustments. They're like, no, we can't let you do this again. You might do severe ear damage to our GM. So no, you don't get your cowbell. And if you bring a cowbell to the arena, we're going to make you check it like a coat. And then you can get it on the way out. That's basically what they said. So it's I like your little wordplay here, Isaac. In some ways, I want to give you, what, I am going to give you a dunk, just because you're doing the theme of the day, and you've made some funny stuff in there as far as he's a repeat dispenser of pot shots. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. He has a history, and that really is a big factoring into what happened with him this week. Is they're kind of fed up with him. It's weird because in some ways they're kind of like, we'll put you on TV with Charles and Shaq and make you a spokesperson on NBA Today, like with Ernie Johnson and all them. But then also you're a notorious like creep on the court, and you're doing all kinds of dirty stuff and very physical, and you're also very outspoken. Like there's been so many games in the last couple of years where I see Draymond get an ability to yell at the refs, go off on them. He doesn't get any texts. He doesn't get thrown out. And I was like, this dude can do whatever he wants to the refs, and they will not do anything to him. Well, maybe they heard people saying that, and now they're coming down on him more. Near the end of the season, he surpassed the allowed technicals for the whole season, and he had to get suspended for a game and fined. There were a few guys that had that happen to them right at the end of the season, and Draymond was one of them. And that's what I'm saying. Joe Dumars is looking at the body of work. He's looking at who it is. It does matter who you are and if you have a reputation. And that is part of the reason why he's getting the suspension. Now, Warriors fans are crying foul. He already got ejected, and now he's getting suspended too. Well, that's accrued. That's accrued from over time and reputation and knowing what he's done for a long time. And they're showing all these crazy, dirty old Draymond clips at this point. It's like, you want to know why he's getting suspended? Well, here's video evidence. Here's his highlight reel of dirty ass shit that he's been doing in this league for years. So yeah, it's interesting. I like your comment, Isaac. G saying, yes, it's me. Had to delete my old one, but didn't want to yet to clear some stuff up. There you go. So we got double G's, two G's, twinning G's, G clone and G and his clone. I like it. Monique saying, hey, everyone, to keep your mind off the playoffs, there's a ton of interviews with Nick Nurse. There's a very interesting one on Uninterrupted Canada. He's talking a lot about his personal life. Like he talks about his mom having a brain tumor when he was young, and how when she was dealing with that, they had to really take care of themselves because she couldn't do things around the house. And like his lifestyle as a young kid in Iowa is very interesting because it's like 9 kids, right? There's a lot of kids. And I've heard him talk about this in interviews before, where everything that they got as kids, they had to fight for. So in some ways, the competitiveness and the nature of Nick Nurse and who he is was set up by his childhood, and being a kid of a younger sibling among older siblings, fighting for all resources like food, like toys, whatever around the house. He had to literally fight with all of his siblings to just get little scraps of food and things. And that's kind of made him who he is and made him such an ultimate competitor. And the way it is really kind of tells you about who he is. Now, very interesting interview, very in-depth, very personal, very like stuff that he wouldn't normally talk about. Like he very much talks about himself and his history and why he is the way he is and where he comes from. So great interview. I've seen that interview. Monique, I'm not sure where all the other interviews are with him. If you know where they are, Monique, start posting them in our Facebook chat, because I only saw that one. You're saying there's a bunch of Nick Nurse interviews out, but I've only seen one so far. Wayne saying OG is the best silent owner. He ain't never going to fire anybody. He'll be a silent owner. Yeah, I really do think he's like making himself more prominent and putting himself out there more just to be more in the conversation around the NBA. It's kind of like maybe he should have done this a couple years earlier, and then maybe he would have been more considered for Defensive Player of the Year. You kind of have to put yourself out there to be aware, to have people aware of you and put you out there. In some ways, he has not done that in his career. And it may be that like his agency or his people representing him are saying, you know what, OG, the next thing you need to do is just get out there and be more in the limelight. Be more out there where people can see you and see what you're all about. So yeah, he's doing other stuff. In fact, somebody asked him near the end of the season, OG, are you going to get involved more in charities, kind of like Chris? Chris has so many interesting, good charities right now, Chris Boucher. Are you going to do more of that stuff, OG? And he said, yeah. He did actually say that in the exit interview for the season. He said, I am interested in getting involved in some foundations and starting some stuff myself. So we should see OG doing some sort of charitable program, kind of maybe similar to like what Scotty does with the trades school, or something like Chris is doing with homeless youth in Montreal, and also his scholarship here in Toronto at Humber, or not Humber, at the Metropolitan or U of T, I guess. It's at U of T or the Metropolitan School. I'm not sure which one. Let's see. Cool Cat saying, I love hearing OG's British accent. I realize when he speaks faster, the British accent shows up. However, when he speaks slower, it sounds American. Yeah. Yeah. It kind of threw me for a loop. I was kind of like, OG, are you putting on fakeness here? Like, who's the real OG? That's what I want to know. What is the real OG voice? Like, is it British? Is he like doing a North American accent around us just because he's on that continent? Like, would he actually really like normal default be the British OG? It's very interesting to me. And in some ways, it's weird when you hear him in his British accent. You understand more about his other accent for like the one he uses here, and why it's kind of awkward is because in some ways it is because he has British speaking patterns in his voice, and you kind of really hear it when he's using the British accent, and it's kind of just sounds kind of weird and awkward when he's doing normal interviews here, since that we've heard. So it's a very interesting phenomena. I don't think he's ingenuine or fake about it. Like I said, it's a regional thing, and when he shows up in that region, it reappears. So it's very interesting. Let Me Cook's here. Let me see what Let Me Cook is saying here today. How are you, Raptor Freak? Happy 420. My weed dispensary is giving 35% off everything in the store if you spend $300 this week, and it's great. And I'm smoking and on edibles while I cook weed brownies. Great day. This person, Let Me Cook, is diversifying his cannabis as far as like he's cooking the weed brownies right now. It's literally Let Me Cook that weed brownies. And he's also on edibles and he's smoking. This is diversifying his cannabis for sure. And I know that Let Me Cook's in the States. So this is good. Up here in Ontario, in Toronto, we have legal weed now, but that isn't the case across the US in every single place. And this may be part of the struggle with the NBA's new rules, is that it really may have to do with where you're at. It could make different teams more attractive than other teams. Think about it this way. The Charlotte Hornets may not be a fun team to play for because North Carolina's drug laws may not be very nice. Same thing for Miami and Orlando, because I know Florida is really not very good for drug laws. Trust me. This may make a factor for free agent destinations, because somebody may very value whether their team is going to be where weed is legal or not. And that's something that's interesting about this whole aspect, is because some states in the States are backwards. We see red states going backwards in time as far as like what their legislation and things, and taking away freedoms and rights right now. Well, those places may suffer in some ways for their sports teams because athletes don't want to go there because of the illegalness of cannabis. So that's an interesting aspect about this whole thing that we haven't even thought about also. This may give favor to teams like Toronto, where weed is legal. And I like that. I like that a lot. So, yeah, today, a lot of people in Toronto for 420 like to go to Yonge and Dundas Square. In fact, I might go down there myself, walk down there for 420 this afternoon around 420. And I go there because they have everybody in the square. There's like booths set up with people that sell cannabis related products. There's a lot of just people there just gathering for that moment at 420 where everybody sparks up. And it's so crazy because Yonge and Dundas Square is kind of like our Times Square here in Toronto, like in New York. And they have all the advertising signs, and it's a square. Well, when everybody lights up at the same exact time, we're talking thousands of people, it literally turns into a chimney, and all the smoke comes up like it's like a chimney, that whole square and the buildings around it. It's funny because all the police officers and everybody around all the buildings and all the office buildings, they get a contact high just because there's such a prevalence of cannabis smoke at that moment. So I think I might go down there and join the whole festivities and get down there and say hi and say hey to everybody out there too. Cool Cat saying OG is now boss of his former teammate Sam Decker. Yeah, technically. I mean, I don't know. Owners not aren't necessarily bosses though. Normally, owners are kind of just in the background. I mean, technically, you could say that, but he's not probably going to go tell him what to do. It's not like he's going to show up at practice and say, Sam Decker, shoot more threes or something like that. No, he's probably just like a silent owner. He's going to let other people run the team, and he'll probably just kick back and be like, yeah, let me have some money from the team getting increased in value. In fact, I think OG getting part ownership of that team increased the value just in that, like the prestige, and they're getting more eyes on them all of a sudden. I'm sure there's a lot of people in Raptors Nation all of a sudden want to go check out the London Lions and see what this team is all about in this league. So in some ways, this is a really good gateway door open for like Raptors Nation to possibly get involved and interested in the British Basketball League and following this team. So it's not just it's a really smart move by that team and that league to bring somebody of notoriety like OG to be involved, because more people will be aware of the league in the first place, and they're more likely to see more viewership or maybe even more fans because of it. So really, really smart idea. Really, really smart idea to have OG involved. MSJ saying Super Scotty Silver Haze. Ooh, yeah, yeah, that might be good. Super Scotty Silver Haze. Not bad. I like that, MSJ. Let Me Cook saying, how are you, Rap Freak? Happy 4th. Okay, I read that one already. You just put little new emoticons. You made the same statement. I like it. You got the little smoke blowers. All right, MSJ saying, last comment, bring back Keon Clark as the Raptors marijuana ambassador. He could mingle in Jurassic Park, sit there on Raptors Tonight and eat the food. Play fans at the YMCA. Endless opportunities. Well, you know, Keon, he did smoke marijuana. That's not really what he was known for. He was more known for gin and vodka. He was an alcoholic. It really is his biggest problem was alcohol, and he honestly couldn't stop. He wanted to not drink so much during his career, but he drank every single day he played in the NBA. In fact, he drank at halftime. He would drink like a fifth of vodka in the middle of the game, and you could tell from his glassy eyes. You could also tell by the way he carried his body. In some ways, he wasn't very coordinated at times, and you could tell he was a little sloshed out on the court. So yeah, he's not really a marijuana guy in my head. He's more an alcoholic, and that he has an alcohol problem, and it's not necessarily cannabis that I associate Keon Clark with. But yeah, good to mention Keon Clark on the stream today. All right, we got a Keon Clark mention. So real quick, let me just look at some more stuff real quick about the cannabis. Snoop Dogg is applauding the NBA for the new marijuana policy and saying that the players should have the marijuana instead of the opioids, because the opioids and things that they've been given, they can cause addiction problems. You know, this is a problem with all kinds of athletes. You know, you get on painkillers to alleviate the pain after games and stuff, and then all of a sudden you have a painkiller addiction. You know, that in some ways, this is an area that is really, really going to be helpful for players to avoid a painkiller addiction, is by using CBDs in a non-smoke way. So, you know, what's not to like? Lessening addiction issues with possible painkiller addictions with opioids. That's something to like, if you ask me. So, Adam Silver, he says this. I don't want to speak for NBA executive director Michelle Roberts, but she and I have somewhat similar view on this, which is we should follow the science. This is not an ethical issue for me. It's not a moral issue for me. I obviously see what is happening in the states around America. 10 states have legalized both medical and recreational use of marijuana. Oregon, California, Colorado, Michigan, and Massachusetts are all states with NBA teams that have done this. So you can see which teams will have this advantage like we do. The California teams, the Nuggets, the Pistons, the Celtics, and the Trailblazers. Now, the rest of the league, they're going to have what's going to happen. They're going to need the local legalities to change so that they can have things easier for all that. So yeah, I think Snoop Dogg has a valid point too. I mean, listen, the players want more business opportunities to make money and revenue streams. They want new abilities to help recover their bodies after the beat ups of NBA games on a regular basis. This is a better way to bounce back in some ways on your off day is to use some CBDs to just alleviate pain. It's very, very good for that. And in some ways, very harmless in some ways, taken as edibles. So, there's it's all like really good things. The stigma's been so built up over the years against cannabis by William Randolph Hearst, the war on drugs, Richard Nixon, all kinds of crazy stuff throughout the history of time. That it's all lies. A lot of it was lies and a useful tool to incarcerate people of color was what the war on drugs against cannabis was all along. Honestly, that's really what it was. And it still is to this day in some pockets, but people aren't allowing it anymore. In fact, President Biden wants to get a lot of the people that are in jail for long term for any kind of cannabis charges out, that they shouldn't be in there at this point. And I agree. G saying, didn't the painkiller issue affect Jalen Harris? Exactly, G. In fact, there you go. That's a good example. Jalen Harris was caught with a restricted substance in his body, which was an opioid from a painkiller, and that made him lose his career with the Raptors. So there you go. There's a very good example of that kind of thing right there. Exactly. All right, I'm just over an hour. I don't want to go too long today. Just wanted to touch on this hot topic subject that's just starting in this league on 420, the legalization of cannabis in the NBA, and also, the allowance of the players to invest and be spokespeople for cannabis companies. Sorry, excuse me. So it's a new phenomena. It's a new world. We'll see how it all shakes out, and we'll see who maybe in the Raptors organization is involved in this kind of stuff. We know Fred is. We know he is for sure, but we don't know about any of the other stuff. All right, y'all. Thanks for watching me. Please, very much, please like, comment, and subscribe. Very much, please subscribe. If you enjoy my content, that is the best way you can help me. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscriptions. And then once I get to 1,000 subscriptions, I can open up all these bells and whistles as a partner with YouTube. And the climb has been slow and gritty, but I appreciate every single one of y'all for helping me get closer and closer. So if you have any friends that are diehard Raptor fans and they really care about the team, tell them about me and get them to come in here and maybe they'll join us. Maybe they'll watch from time to time. Some people are daily watchers. Some people come and check in every once in a while. And all of it's great. I just love seeing people come and go. Whether you come and see me and you don't see me at all this summer and you come back next season, I don't care. Just please like, comment, and subscribe. It very much helps me. All right, let me see what the last couple comments are. Monique saying, keep at it, Lex, always. I appreciate that, Monique. And Fiercely Self Sarah saying, let's go 1,000%. Project Truth always. Keep at it. Everybody who's out there saying the truth and speaking the truth about the Raptors. And we'll see what Masai does. We'll have to find out what's going to go on here. All right, y'all. Thanks once again. And tomorrow, Friday Freakout. I'm not totally sure what it's going to be on. I'll figure it out tonight and put it together for tomorrow. All right, let's go Raptors. Happy 420.